Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we're embarking on a journey not just back in time, but into the minds of our most ancient ancestors. What if I told you that the simple, sharp-edged stone in a museum display case holds secrets not just about what early humans ate, but about how their brains were wired? What if the layout of a long-abandoned settlement could tell us about their social anxieties and alliances? This isn't science fiction. This is the emerging field of neuroarchaeology, and it's changing everything we thought we knew about the human past. Forget just looking at bones and artifacts. We're now peering into the very thought processes that made us who we are today. So let's dig in. Neuroarchaeology is exactly what it sounds like, a powerful blend of neuroscience, the study of the brain, and archaeology, the study of the human past through material remains. For a long time, archaeologists have tried to understand ancient thoughts, a field called cognitive archaeology, by analyzing things like tools and art. But neuroarchaeology takes a giant leap forward. It integrates our modern, high-tech understanding of the brain, using data from things like fMRI scans to build a much richer picture of the past. At the heart of this new field is a truly mind-bending idea called material engagement theory. The theory proposes that our minds are not just confined to the 3 pounds of wet tissue inside our skulls. Instead, our minds extend into the world through our interactions with things. The tools we make, the food we cook, the homes we build, these aren't just products of our thoughts. They are active partners that have shaped our cognition over millions of years. Our brains and the material world are locked in a dynamic dance of coevolution. The stone tool shaped the hand, and the hand shaped the brain, which in turn imagined a better tool. It's a feedback loop that has been running for millennia. To really understand this, let's start with the most fundamental human need: food. You've heard the saying, "You are what you eat," but in neuroarchaeology, this takes on a profound evolutionary meaning. Our brains are incredibly expensive organs. While making up only about 2% of our body weight, the human brain devours about 20% of our total energy. For comparison, in other primates, it's closer to 8%. To fuel this energy-hungry supercomputer, our ancestors had to make a critical dietary shift. They couldn't get by on a simple diet of raw, low-quality plants. The solution? A move to more nutrient-dense foods, specifically meat, and later, cooked foods. This change wasn't just about getting enough calories. It was a massive cognitive catalyst. The skills needed to acquire and process meat are worlds away from simply picking fruit. You have to track animals, understand their behavior, cooperate with others, and then, once you have the carcass, you need the right tools and techniques to butcher it. This is where the story of our cognitive evolution gets sharp. Let's look at the tools. The earliest stone tools, known as Oldowan tools, date back about 2.6 million years. They are relatively simple: a stone core with a few flakes knocked off to create a sharp edge. Making one required good hand-eye coordination and a basic, intuitive understanding of how stone fractures. But fast forward about 1 million years, to around 1.7 million years ago, and we see the emergence of Acheulean tools. These are the iconic, symmetrical, teardrop-shaped hand axes. An Acheulean hand axe is not just a sharper rock, it's a concept made real. To create one, you need to hold a multi-step plan in your mind. You need to visualize the final shape within the raw stone. You need advanced motor control to strike the stone with precision, removing flakes systematically from both sides to achieve that perfect symmetry. When modern scientists ask people to replicate making these tools while inside an fMRI scanner, they see a fascinating picture. Making an Oldowan tool activates basic visual and motor regions of the brain, but making an Acheulean hand axe lights up a whole different network. It engages the prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive suite, which is responsible for planning, working memory, and complex problem solving. This tells us that the very act of making a better tool to get better food was a workout for the ancient human brain. It created a powerful evolutionary feedback loop. The need for more calories drove the innovation of better tools, and the cognitive challenge of making those tools selected for bigger, more complex brains. Those bigger brains could then get even more high-quality food, fueling further brain growth. But neuroarchaeology doesn't just look at the mechanics. It delves into the sensory world of our ancestors. Think about taste and smell. These senses are deeply, primordially wired into our brain's centers for emotion and memory. The olfactory bulb, which processes smells, has direct connections to the amygdala, our emotion hub, and the hippocampus, our memory headquarters. That's why a single whiff of a certain food can instantly transport you back to your childhood kitchen, complete with all the associated feelings. This ancient wiring was a critical survival tool. Developing a powerful taste aversion after getting sick from a particular plant would create a lasting, life-saving memory. Conversely, the satisfying feeling of energy and fullness after a successful hunt would be a powerful positive memory, encouraging our ancestors to seek out that food again. The advent of cooking, perhaps 1,000,000 years ago, was another revolutionary leap. Cooking does more than just make food safer and easier to chew. It chemically unlocks a huge amount of extra calories and nutrients. But from a neuroarchaeological perspective, the process of cooking itself is a cognitive exercise. Preparing a meal is a form of embodied cognition, where the mind and body work together in a complex sequence. You have to gather different ingredients, remember the steps, manage a fire, and time the process. Transmitting these recipes and skills from one generation to the next would have been a cornerstone of social learning and culture. The kitchen, even a prehistoric one, was a laboratory for a smarter brain. Of course, our brains didn't just evolve to find food. We are fundamentally social creatures. This brings us to the social brain hypothesis, which argues that the main driver of our brain's massive expansion was the challenge of navigating complex social landscapes. We needed bigger brains to keep track of who's a friend, who's a rival, who owes whom a favor, and who holds a grudge. Neuroarchaeology gives us the tools to see the material fingerprints of these ancient social worlds. Consider the act of feasting. The communal sharing of food is a universal human behavior with deep evolutionary roots. Archaeologically, we find evidence of feasts in the form of massive hearths, huge accumulations of animal bones, and specialized pottery. Through a neuroarchaeological lens, a feast is not just a big meal. It's a powerful tool for social engineering. The act of sharing food triggers the release of neurochemicals in our brain, most notably oxytocin, the so-called trust hormone. This chemical reward for cooperative behavior would have been a potent force for forging alliances, strengthening group identity, and ensuring social cohesion. When you share food, especially a valuable resource like meat, you're not just sharing calories, you're building a social contract based on reciprocal altruism. You are neurologically wired to find that cooperation pleasurable. Beyond feasting, think about ritual and music. One of the oldest known musical instruments is a flute, carved from a bear's femur, dating back tens of thousands of years. Music isn't just entertainment, it's a technology for synchronizing minds. Neuroscience shows us that music activates our brain's reward centers, can evoke powerful emotions, and enhances memory. When a group of people listen to music, and especially when they move or chant in rhythm together, their brain waves can actually synchronize. This creates a powerful feeling of shared emotion and connectedness, a sense of being part of something larger than oneself. This collective effervescence is an incredibly potent force for social bonding. Archaeologists can now analyze ancient ritual spaces, like the acoustic properties of a cave or the visual lines of sight in a stone circle, to understand how these sites were engineered to create specific cognitive and emotional impacts on participants. Finally, the very way our ancestors organized their living spaces gives us clues about their social minds. The layout of a settlement can reflect the social structure of its inhabitants. Is there a large, central, open space suggesting a communal, egalitarian lifestyle? Or are there clearly demarcated private areas and larger, more elaborate dwellings, suggesting a social hierarchy. The ability to plan and construct a settlement, to create a shared landscape of home, required sophisticated spatial reasoning, long-term planning, and immense cooperation. The broader landscape, too, became part of the collective mind. Hills, caves, rivers, and groves were imbued with meaning, becoming sacred sites, landmarks, and repositories of tribal memory. So, where does this leave us? Neuroarchaeology is a young, vibrant field, but it's already revealing a profound truth. You cannot separate the evolution of the human mind from the material world it inhabited and created. Our brains were not forged in a vacuum. They were shaped by the friction of stone on stone, nourished by the calories unlocked by fire, and expanded by the need to connect with other minds. By bridging the tangible relics of the past with the inner workings of the brain, we are beginning to understand not just what our ancestors did, but how they thought, how they felt, and what it was like to perceive the world through their eyes. The journey into the ancient mind is just beginning, and it promises to reveal even more about the very essence of what makes us human. Thanks for tuning in to G Fun Facts Online. Join us next time for more amazing insights from the world of science.